Hello and welcome. I'm Dr. Adam Dorsey, a psychologist in Silicon Valley, and I am the host of Super Psyched, a podcast dedicated to supercharging your life. Each episode contains fun, high-quality interviews with experts looking at psychology from all angles. Super Psyched is your tool to get more of what you want in your life and less of what you don't. What does it take to create success on your own terms? I know, that's a massive question. We all recognize predictable skills to increase the likelihood of that success, like clarity, discipline, habits, mindset, and navigating relationships. Yet there can be a chasm between what we know intellectually and what we put into regular practice. I had the pleasure of speaking with Shellye Archambeau, an exemplar of excellence, who has lived the best practices of leadership as a CEO, senior executive, and board member at multiple high-profile, high-tech companies. Shellye was named the second most influential African-American in IT by Business Insider magazine, and she is the author of a book that serves as a roadmap to successful leadership. The book is called Unapologetically Ambitious. Take risks, break barriers, and create success on your own terms. And it was named a Best Business Book of 2020 by both Fortune and Bloomberg. Silicon Valley venture capitalist Ben Horrowitz said of her book, "If your goal is to be a truly great leader of men and women, you have found your guide." I agree so much that I have read this book several times. I find Shellye's wisdom, humanity, and ability to convey her world-class experience in an actionable fashion simply phenomenal. Among the elements of success unpacked are the importance of mentorship and finding your cheerleaders. Shellye's voice is so strong and so clear that as I read her book, I felt her becoming both a mentor and a cheerleader to me. So join Shellye and me as we have a lively and informative discussion about how to create success on your own terms. Shellye Archambeau, welcome to Super Psyched.
Well, thank you. I've been looking forward to this, Adam.
Oh, likewise. I have only read your book 2.5 times, so I'm very much in the category of super fan. I loved Unapologetically Ambitious. You've made it engaging, personal, and not put downable. And yet within it, you've somehow included a textbook, a playbook for success that is directed at the success of women of color. It fills a badly needed space. And while much of it is tailored to people who are often unfairly marginalized, I would go so far as to say most of the lessons could apply to anyone who wants to excel. Would you agree with that assessment?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I didn't write it just for Black women. I just happened to be a Black woman who wrote it. So therefore my experiences, I'm sure they can identify with a little bit more. But I was actually trying to write it for everyone because I think the lessons that I learned are transferable. Everybody can use them to try to improve their odds to get what they want out of life. And that's why I wrote the book, because I want more people to be able to achieve their life aspirations.
That's absolutely wonderful. And at the same time, as a Black woman, you encountered unique challenges. And I was wondering if you could speak to some of those. You and I were speaking off air about Amanda Gorman, who just hit it out of the park yesterday at the inauguration. And yet she had to step to a mic that you noticed was positioned for a person of 6 foot high in stature, and she was not. And I imagine that kind of acts as almost a metaphor for some of the challenges you've encountered in kind of a one-size-fits-all corporate environment. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Oh, gosh. It's like where to start. So I'll start early. I'll give you a couple examples. When I first started my career with IBM, I was in sales. I was in Dallas, Texas, and one of my customers was 7-Eleven, Southland Corporation. They owned all the 7-Eleven stores. So I'm young, I'm Black. I also happen to be pregnant, or at least I was getting pregnant. And I walk into this company and all the men are wearing suits and cowboy boots. And I am called honey and sweetheart and sweet pea.
Oh, no.
I found one woman in management in the entire IT organization. I'm still friends with her to this day, by the way. And I'm thinking, oh my God, does IBM want me to fail? How am I ever going to get respect enough for them to actually want to buy things from me? When I say things, we're talking about, these are back then, computers were expensive, right? A lot of money, a lot of capital. So Yeah, right from the beginning. When you talk about fit in, not fit in, oh, no. I stuck out like a sore thumb.
Sure.
And I had to learn, basically, okay, how to maneuver through that kind of environment. And frankly, the good news is I learned how to do it so that I could take that forward for other instances. So let me, if you don't mind, I'll just share a quick story. And that was, here I am, and people are calling me all these names, everything but my name. And finally, I'm in a meeting with a gentleman who's a customer. His name is Mac McElroy. And Mac calls me Sweet Pea. Oh, Sweet Pea, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, that's it. And so what I did, because I knew I couldn't embarrass him. If I embarrassed him by calling it out, or I made him feel uncomfortable, then it was going to create a situation where I wasn't going to be able to build a good business relationship because things would be awkward. So that's the key. Now, should it be my issue to have to solve this problem? The answer is no, but it is. It's fair, so that's okay. But I said to him when he asked me the question, and I looked at him and I paused just long enough for me to see him register. Did she hear me? He knows that, I'm not responding. And then I responded and I said, Mac, my name is Shellye. And then I answered his question. I said nothing else. That's all I said. And he got it. We never talked about it again. He always called me Shellye after that. I didn't embarrass him. It was the key, but I had to get his attention. And that's why the pause, just the point where it's almost uncomfortable. So he was listening. And I said that, and then I went forward. And that's a technique that I've used. You have these experiences. The key is to learn from them so that you can leverage them going forward, because unfortunately, stuff's going to happen again. So the sooner you learn how to deal with it, the easier things will be in terms of later on.
And you seem to be a master at filling gaps. One of the most compelling parts of the book was when you were describing giving your very first PowerPoint presentation in Japan. And here you were showing up, probably not who they expected to see on any level, and you killed. Can you explain how you did that? I believe that you really addressed them in a way that caused them to prick up their ears.
Here I was getting ready. It's my first time speaking to my Japanese team. And the senior people speak English very well because it's a global company, US based. So of course, in order to do well, you have to speak English. But the average rank and file, they speak English, but they don't use it a lot. And so I'm sitting here thinking, gosh, and I had to turn this group around, not just Japan, but the whole Asia Pacific. We weren't doing well in my particular division. So we had to get riled up, get focused. This had to be an inspiring, here's what we're going to go do. And I didn't want people walking out not knowing what the heck I said. I had my assistant put all my slides in Japanese. Now, I couldn't read the slides. I knew what I wanted to say. And so it was interesting, for me in terms of, okay, key slide one, this is the points. So we get started, get in front of the room, it's filled. And I put up my first slide and there's a visible, sound like people are like, uh-oh. I'm thinking, what did she put on the slides? But I just went forward, gave the presentation. And it turned out that this team had never had anybody stand up and just put all of the slides in Japanese. But it didn't occur to me not to, because I needed people to understand. And understanding takes two sides. Yes, it's what you say, but it's what people actually hear or understand or comprehend on the other side.
And what was the net effect?
Net effect of that whole stint was we took a group that was in the bottom 10% of the company in year-over-year growth. And when I left that job, we were in the top.
Just unbelievable. I love that so much. So let's go back a little bit before all of this even transpired. Let's go back to your childhood. I love that you included that in your book, and your parents, whose memory are clearly a blessing, and clearly they're very much alive in everything that you do. Could you share a little bit about your childhood and how these formative experiences have contributed to who you are today?
Definitely. And that's actually why I included it in the book, because I wanted people to understand a little bit about what made me. So growing up, I went to elementary school in the 60s. So the 60s were very tumultuous times, especially when it came to race. For as many people that wanted civil rights, we had just as many, if not more, that did not. And my family moved around a lot. My father didn't have a college degree. He kept, moving to get more and more, dollars to support his family, et cetera. So I'm always a new kid in the block. And we first moved when I'm in, first grade, was to a suburb of Los Angeles in California, where I was not only the only Black girl in my class, but in my grade. And I think in school, it was, So I wasn't treated very well, just flat out. Things people would say, children and adults, by the way. I got beat up, which is not good. So all these things happen to you. And you come home and you're always saying, to your mom, it's not fair, right? This happened. You weren't treated well. Something went on, or you didn't get what you thought you deserved. You say, it's not fair. Kids do it all the time. My mom, instead of just putting me in a hug and saying, oh, it's okay, blah, 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 blah. No, she'd say, you're right. Life's not fair. What do you mean life's not fair? As a kid, it's supposed to be fair. You get one, I get one. Fair. No, life's not fair. So no punches pulled. It's like, okay, so what are you going to do about it? And that absolutely shaped me. The other thing that shaped me was because things kept happening, what others saying was, you can't control what people say to you, and you can't control what people do to you, but you can control how you respond.
Yep.
So don't let them win. And winning is when they affect how you feel. They affect how you feel and they've won. So don't let them win. Doesn't matter what they do, what they say, but don't let them win. So all of that put together was what really set the stage for me realizing, okay, number one, odds aren't in my favor to get anything I want. So if I just do what everybody else does, I'm probably not going to get much. Number one. And number two, since life isn't fair, I've got to be really intentional to try to improve these odds. And don't let them win. Work hard, and trust me, they won a lot of times. So I don't want to say that just because mom said don't let them win, that they didn't win. They totally won a number of times. But I did learn over time how to just reframe things so that they didn't win.
And at what point were you clear about a vision? Because I know that you care about planning. You seem to live by the idea of if you fail to plan, then plan to fail. And you just love planning, and you have a profoundly strategic mindset. But what has to precede that is the vision itself. And you were talking a bit about your high school guidance counselor and a whole host of other people asking you questions. At what point did you have a clear enough vision to know what it was you were going for, and what actually was the catalyst for that vision?
Sure. So what I learned, back to being intentional, and also, by the way, I was very competitive. I grew up in a family of four. Parents were crazy. 4 children in less than 5 years. Think about that. So we grew up very close, but very competitive. So anyway, you put those things together. And what I learned was having a goal, having something I was shooting for, and then figuring out how to go make it happen, whether it was to win a game or to get the good grade or to get into a club and ultimately become a leader of a club, et cetera. That's what I started doing. So I liked having the target. Okay, what's the target? What's the goal? Let's figure out how we go get the goal. So here I am having the obligatory conversation with my guidance counselor in high school. Junior year, are you going to college? Let's do the apps. What are you going to do after college? And I told her, I don't know what I want to do after college. I just know I want a job that I can keep the thermostat at 72 degrees. I can eat at restaurants and I can travel. So those are all things that I couldn't do. So that's what I want to be able to do. And she said, what do you like to do? And I said, oh, clubs. I'm in the American Field Service and French Club. I'm in National Honor Society, Key Club. I'm even a Girl Scout, but don't tell anybody. And I loved leading the clubs. And she said, Shellye, running clubs and organizations, clubs are like businesses. Pull people together, go after a common objective, make things happen. And I went, done. I like leading clubs, so I'll lead a business. You look around and the people who lead businesses are called CEOs. So I said, great, I'm going to be a CEO. Age of 16. Now, honestly, did I know what that really meant? No. People are like, how did you have such a clear view? I'm like, honestly, I just picked it. It gave me a target. It gave me a goal. It sounded like things that I like to do. So fine, that's what I'm going to go do. So literally, I then mapped out my entire life. Okay.
And it
what
really
I need to do to become a CEO. That's what I'm going to go do.
And it fit like the coat that you chose before you got pregnant, which is something people will have to read in the book. But yes, it fit like a perfect coat.
Yeah.
Didn't it? Choosing CEO. So let's talk about the imposter syndrome. First of all, you and I are both past sufferers of the imposter syndrome, perhaps even at times present.
I still do from time to time. People say, you gotten over it? I'm like, no, I think it's one of those things where it's always there. And even though it's ridiculous, and I tell myself, Shellye, it's ridiculous, but it still creeps up every once in a while.
Yeah, so let's hear your definition of imposter syndrome and some of the techniques you've used to overcome it.
Sure. So imposter syndrome is that little voice That little voice that creeps into your mind whenever you have a new opportunity, somebody's offered you a job or promotion or to join a group or to speak or anything that might be different or new. And that little voice comes in and says, you're not as smart as they think you are. Wait till they figure out that you don't know everything they think you know. Here are all the things that could possibly go wrong if you actually do this. It's the little voice that is basically eating and tearing away at your confidence. It's telling you every negative thought you've ever had all comes up and just starts reverberating into your brain. To me, that's what imposter syndrome is.
For sure.
Now, here's what I learned though. Studies show that almost everybody suffers from imposter syndrome at some point or another. So what does that tell you? It tells you it's not personal. It tells you it's in the air because everybody has it. And oh, by the way, that means it's not real. It's like television. It looks real. It sounds real. It can even feel real, but it's not real. We tell our kids that all the time. Don't get scared. It's not real. And you can shut it off. That little advice that's talking to you, it's not real. So shut that thing off. And if that doesn't work for you, remember that you only feel it when people are typically offering you something new. You know what? They wouldn't offer you the job. They wouldn't ask you to speak. They wouldn't invite you into the group if they didn't think that you belonged and that you could do the job and that you could add value. So even if you can't believe in yourself, believe them. And if that doesn't work, fake it. Fake it. Act you know what you're doing until you do, because you always figure it out in the end. So those are my kind of quick 3 steps, but I talk a lot more in the book about how to do this, but that's how I do it. If 1 or 2 or 3 don't work, hey, and worst case, even if faking it, you're struggling with the whole faking it, then you call your cheerleader. You call your cheerleader and you get them to rev you up, pump you up, remind you of all your good qualities and all the reasons why you absolutely deserve to be in the game, and then get out there and go do it.
Oh my gosh. So you're speaking about so many things I want to touch on. First of all, before we go to the cheerleaders, because cheerleaders have to be discussed. It's not personal. It's not real. It's in the air. That may be one of the best definitions I've ever heard of the imposter syndrome. And you just turn it off and you fake it till you become it. And I'm looking at the title of your book, and I imagine that you also, instead of stepping into the imposter elements or into the anxiety elements, you step into the ambition itself. You step into, I want this.
Yes.
And somehow that acts as a muting device of the imposter syndrome and the anxiety itself. Yeah. And then you call your cheerleaders. One of my favorite aphorisms is that we become the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with. And you describe them as your cheerleaders. And I think, of course, Scotty, whose memory is absolutely a blessing, your husband of many years, without whom you even said there's no way you would have become the person you would become. And I think that you very appropriately recognize that none of us gets there alone. We all need a team of awesome people around us. And what are your criteria for your cheerleaders?
Oh, it's really very simple. Cheerleaders are people who build you up, not tear you down. They're people who, after spending time with them, you feel better about yourself and more energized, not worse about yourself and depleted. You know, cheerleaders are the ones that want you to succeed, want you to achieve, and are there to help remind you that you can. When I think of cheerleaders, you can have a lot of people around you, right, that are friends, that are doing this, etc. But cheerleaders are the ones that are really pumping you up, sometimes kicking you in the butt too.
Yeah.
So it takes both. But if you don't have cheerleaders in your life, then go anoint somebody. Because I will tell you, I don't know how to do it without a cheerleader. Life is hard. People don't tell you that. They really don't. But life is hard. And nobody accomplishes anything of significance by themselves. If they tell you they did, they're lying.
Exactly.
Nobody does. So we all need help. So go get those cheerleaders. Go call somebody there first. I don't care. Cousin, nephew, it can be a friend, it can be an aunt, it can be a parent, doesn't matter. Just say, listen, Shellye said I need a cheerleader, so I've decided you're my cheerleader. And here's what it means. It means when I call you and tell you that, oh, I don't know about this new job, or I don't think I can do this, or I don't know, you remind me how awesome I am. You remind me of all the things that I've done because that imposter syndrome voice drowns out everything. And I don't remember a thing when that thing is making all that noise in my head. So I need you to drown it out. That's basically what a cheerleader is.
I remember I was reading an article in, of all things, GQ magazine in 1990 about Evander Holyfield. And one of the things that it said in the article was, it's all under the hood. And I thought, what a great metaphor, because we have all of these assets, virtues under the hood, and we forget about their existence. And our cheerleader lovingly reminds us, sometimes kicks our butts in the process. I love that fact. And just like your mom would say, so what you going to do about it? And the basic tenet of Buddhism, life is hard. One of my very favorite things to do if I just need a little inspiration is watch any of the Rocky films. Just watch him struggle with the thing. And it's like, all right, let's do this. You and I have so many things in common. One of the things when I was reading your book numerous times, I was realizing that there's a kinship here. And you and I share a particular diagnostic, and I call it the drive-away test. And the drive-away test is basically my assessment as I'm driving away from an interaction, of course, pre-COVID, with a friend. Do I feel taller? Do I feel pumped up and buoyed in some way? Do I feel affirmed? Or do I feel shorter, perhaps even a little bit deflated? If it's the former and not the latter, they are my cheerleaders. And it sounds like you have the drive-away test as well. Mm-hmm. Essentially, do they really champion you to be your best?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's a combination of verbalizing, but it's also expectation. And then it starts to build on itself. They just expect you got to be good. So you want to make sure you don't let people down.
Totally. And one of the other cool things that I believe that you've done is that you will even put it out there that you are going to do a thing to your people for that. Yeah.
Listen, there are actually studies out there and research that says, don't tell people what your aspirations are. There are other studies that say, tell the right people, but only the right people. I think all that's baloney. And I know there's studies and all that's fine. I'm not smart enough to know who the right people are. So I tell everybody what it is that I'm trying to do or want to accomplish because I don't know who can help me. Sometimes the person that can help me is the person working out next to me in the gym or a neighbor, right? Or so you never know who can help you. So don't keep it to yourself. People cannot read your mind. So if you're trying to get something done, tell people. Because remember what I said before? Nobody accomplishes anything by themselves. You need team. You need folks in the pool. And they don't know to join in if they don't know what the heck you're doing. So I believe in tell the universe what you want so the universe can help you. Because my experience is most people are actually inclined to help if asked in the right way.
That's so true. And you may be familiar with the Franklin effect. That's attributable to Benjamin Franklin, that when we ask somebody for help or we ask them for advice, they not only feel complimented that we've asked them for their intelligence, their altruistic sides are being pulled upon and they want to see you succeed. And that's been very true to my own experience. And you're right. You don't know who it's going to be. It could be the barista at Starbucks. It could be the jeweler down the street. It could be anybody, this random individual, you're just walking your dog and who you're talking to. And lo and behold, they hook you up. Mm-hmm. So it's incredible. I love that. One of the other things that you and I share in common is a love of Toastmasters. I spent several years there myself, and you did too. Can you talk about how Toastmasters has been a part of your success?
Sure. So here I was. I joined IBM in sales and looking, all right, I want to be CEO. And I look around and gosh, there's like 150,000 people here. They probably all want to be CEO. So I'm watching executives. And one of the things that I notice is that the executives are all like good on their feet. They seem calm and confident when they speak. They talk sometimes extemporaneously. They do the whole thing. And I'm thinking, ooh, that's not me. I would like, all right, if I get in front of a group and I'm holding notes, that paper might even shake a little bit. And I'm thinking, how am I going to be CEO if I can't even become an executive because I can't speak? So I joined Toastmasters because I had to figure out that has to be true. You know, one of the things I do is I ask myself, I have a goal. What has to be true? And then how do we make it true? So I want to be CEO. What has to be true? Well, it was obvious that I needed to be a good communicator and a good speaker. So how do I make it true? Go find resources. I joined Toastmasters and worked on it. So now I'm a pretty good speaker, but I wasn't born this way.
You're a ridiculously good speaker. And the guy who actually recruited me never even met me. I was listening to an audiobook of Harvey McKay, the guy who wrote Swim with the Sharks Without Being Eaten Alive. You're nodding. You remember that book, right?
Yep.
And that was when I was in the corporate world, where I spent nearly 2 decades. That was one of my Bibles. And at the end of one of his books, I don't recall which one, he asks the listener, join Toastmasters. If you don't like it, send me a postcard and I will reimburse you for the fee of joining.
Wow.
And I thought, okay, I'm doing this. And I spent at least 2 years in Toastmasters, maybe 3. It was transformative. It was amazing.
It was great. Listen, table topics. I used to compete in table topics because that was the skill that I really wanted, was the one where you're not prepared, it's off the cuff, and that you're just comfortable stepping into it. So I actually made myself compete so that I could get better.
I love that. And you were talking about being able to speak extemporaneously. And so that is how you, through exposure. Have you heard of exposure therapy, where you actually go right into the thing that causes you the greatest anxiety, like fear of heights or fear of needles? The best way to overcome fear of needles is actually to go donate blood a lot, as much as medically possible, and overcome it through experiencing. And anyway, you did that through Toastmasters, which is a lot less scary than needles. Although it's funny, Jerry Seinfeld has a joke, and you may have heard it, where we fear public speaking more than death itself. So we'd rather be the person in the coffin rather than one doing the eulogy.
That's too funny.
So I thought that was pretty funny. I want to hear a little bit about your idea about work-life balance. You challenged that idea. So let's hear what you have to say about work-life balance and work-life integration, I believe is the term you use.
Yeah, that's right. I really cannot stand the term work-life balance. And the reason I don't like the term is because what is a balance? It's a static, fixed structure that has weights that are even on both sides at all times. Whose life is static? That's ridiculous. So to think that I'm going to be judged on whether or not I have work-life balance, where everything's equal at all times, is just ludicrous. My life goes up and down and in and out, and lots of curves and turns, and that's crazy. So I just totally dismiss that concept. I believe in work-life integration, which means I have my work priorities, I have my personal priorities. I put the two together. I'm one person, and I prioritize ruthlessly and do what I need to get done, which means there are going to be some things that don't get done. So I've either got to let go and live with the consequences or find somebody else to do it. But work-life integration means getting done what you need to get done. And the other thing it means is trying to combine activities, because time is what we don't have. So for instance, I do a lot of walks and talks. Even now, I do them on the phone, but I do them now, which is I'll take a walk and I take a meeting at the same time. If I don't have to see slides or see pictures, why can't I be walking while I'm doing this? Why do I do that? Because I like exercise. And so how do you make time for all these things? That's one of the ways you make time for these things. I started a gourmet dinner club when I moved to the Bay Area. Because why? I like to eat. I like to cook and entertain. I enjoy nice wine. I like people. Okay. And I don't have time. So I do all of those in one evening through my gourmet dinner club. So integration is all about figuring out how you can do multiple things at a time. We take a group when we go to see plays, when we could go see plays, and concerts, whatever, right? Why go by yourselves? Invite, 30 friends and make it an event. So all of these things, I just try to integrate my life so that I can get multiple things done at the same time, focus on what my priorities are. And if you don't mind, Adam, just one more thing that's important in this.
Please.
When you are doing this, personal priorities, work priorities, putting together and prioritize ruthlessly, the only way that works is if you allow yourself only to be judged on what you decide you will be judged on, not what the world decides it wants to judge you on. Because as soon as you start living based upon what the world wants to judge you on, there's no way you're going to be able to prioritize. And you'll never get it all done. And you'll always feel incompetent. So you decide what's important to you. Do your priorities based on what's important to you, and then let go. Do not allow yourself to be judged. And just one quick story on this, just to explain what I mean.
Absolutely.
Our daughter has thick curly hair, still does to this day, thick curly hair. So when she was little, we had to braid her hair to keep her hair neat and tidy and what have you. Okay, I braided hair forever. I had hair myself at one point. It wasn't always short. My husband, the athlete, his hand's probably twice the size of mine. He never braided little girls' hair. Did he need to learn? Absolutely. We're both working. We're both doing stuff. I can't do her hair all the time. So he has to learn. Guess what? When you're learning something, you're not good at it. No one is good at something when they first start. And you know what? He wasn't either. Mm-hmm. Kathleen went to school for a couple months with her hair looking pretty jacked up. Okay. Parts all crooked, uneven braids and stuff raveling, mess. And I know for a fact that when she got to school, people were like, where is her mother? Why did they let her out of the house like that? Right? Now, if I allowed myself to be judged on that, I would have done her hair. Mm-hmm. Or I would have redone her hair, which would have totally emasculated my husband, because if he's trying and I come back and redo it, why is he even bothering? So exactly. I can't do that. That's not what's important to me. I don't care what those people think. Kathleen doesn't care. She's 4 or 5 years old. She didn't care. I didn't let it bother me. And you know what? He learned and he became really good at it. And she looked fine after that. But we still have a picture on the wall that was taken on a picture day when it was to do hair. And Kathleen's hair, he was trying to do 2 braids and pin them up on top of her head. She had one pinned and one hanging down, unraveling. Okay? That picture's been on the wall since she was like 5 years old. Because it's an example of this is what was important. What was important was he learned how to do her hair, not what she looked like for a few months while he figured it out. It didn't affect her. She's a happily well-adjusted woman today. So only allow yourself to be judged on those things that are important to you, not what the world thinks is important.
It feels like that story is bifurcated in 2 parts. One part is the King Lear quote, "To thine own self be true," and really hone in on that. And that's something that you've been really good at doing. And that's been crucial to your success. The other thing, though, was you had delegated something to your husband, and that was doing your daughter's hair, and you weren't going to micromanage it. And that feels like such an important, both managerial skill in the corporate sector, but also an important skill for couples to have. And that, does that feel right to you?
It totally is. It totally is. And let me talk, because I think this is where it goes wrong a lot within households. Okay.
I'm all ears.
You have to actually separate ownership. All right. Separate ownership. It always irks me when I hear somebody refer to the spouse as, oh, such a good help around the house. Always helps out, helps in terms of with the kids. Not a help. I'm like, help? Did you hire that person? Right?
Totally.
Why is it help? No, you both should have ownership for what gets done. One's not help, because if somebody is helping you do something, you own it. You own everything about it forever. Okay? No, you have to let go. And let go means let go. Her hair walk looks like that. My husband did laundry. I did not do laundry for 35 years.
Yep.
I did no laundry.
Yep.
If I was walking past the laundry room and something needed moving, he would ask me, Shellye, would you mind moving what? And I would do that. But I did not do laundry. Okay. So did he do laundry the way I would have done laundry? Nope. What did that mean? That meant every once in a while I had to go buy a new blouse.
Yep.
I go to that, and you know what? That was perfectly fine with me. Because if I started saying, oh no, we'll separate it this way and wash it this way and then what's happened? He says, forget it, you do it. And I would too. So you've got to separate ownership for things and then live with the results.
Shellye, if I was to put a top 10 list of the things I love the most in your book, that would be one of them for sure. That's one of the wisest components to having a happy home. And one of the things as a therapist that I hear about regularly, I went to Costco, I got everything. And the one thing I didn't get, that's the only thing that got any airtime between me and my spouse. To your point about the laundry, yeah, you lost a couple blouses. So what? Scotty owned that job and I let him own it. And I didn't tear him down.
No, absolutely. Trust me, it drove me crazy. My husband did laundry every day. Now he did every day, even after the kids were gone, and it was just he and I. Do you know how little laundry you have every day?
Not much.
And I just sit there, right? And you have to bite your nails, not to say, why are you wasting all that water and all that electricity? Because he's putting these few things. But the reason he did it every day is he just couldn't stand stuff piling up in the laundry room.
Totally.
Zipped it up. He did laundry every day. And that's just the way it was.
I love that one so much. So I'm got to ask you, I imagine that over the years, in order to stay in your best life, so to speak, you have developed certain habits, certain life hacks that have made a difference on the daily. What are some of the things that maybe we might not have read in the book, or some things that might surprise, or some things that have really made a difference in your life, whether it's certain music that you play before getting on stage, perhaps doing jumping jacks, certain before bed techniques or gratitude exercises? What has kept you at your best?
The main one is I choose to be happy. I just choose to be happy. So that doesn't mean that awful things don't happen. And that doesn't mean that I haven't experienced tragedy. And that doesn't mean that I haven't had situations go down that nobody would want to go down. It doesn't mean any of that. I'm not Pollyanna, but it means that I choose to have a positive outlook on life. And I choose to try to bring positive energy into the world and when I do things. And that is my number one hack, if you want to call it.
I would definitely call it a hack. And I would call it a profound recognition. You may have read Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning, where he was in a concentration camp, a Viennese psychiatrist. And after having everything taken away from him, his profession, his wife, his family, his home, everything, he recognized that he had one final freedom, and that was the freedom to choose how he would interpret a situation. And your recognition that happiness is a choice, it's very hard, but the research does corroborate that.
Yeah.
And there is a pie chart that shows that 50% of it is our genetic set point, 10% is our situation, and 40% is based on our intentional efforts. And we can really rock that 40 hard. And it sounds like you rock that 40% through your intentional efforts very hard. Anyone reading your book will realize you faced adversity. It was not an easy path for you. You created your destiny. And of course, others helped you along the way, and including mentors. I'm curious to hear, I loved how you were able to find some great mentors. And I'm laughing because there was a funny part where one person actually said, choose somebody besides me because you already got me. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But I'd love to hear about mentorship. You and I have both been the beneficiaries of this time-tested dynamic of learning from an elder. Can you talk a little bit about what role mentorship has played in your life, and how does one choose a really good mentor?
Yeah, honestly, mentors have played a huge role in my life. And since you leaned on it, I'll go ahead and tell that story. It really did shape my entire outlook on mentors. So here I was at IBM. I'm probably 6 years in, and IBM decided they wanted their high potential people to have mentors. And he asked us who we'd like our mentors to be. So I said, okay. Thought about it, and I picked a man by the name of Roland Harris. He was a couple levels above me. I knew him. I thought he liked me. So I thought, okay, Roland. So I put him down. Several days later, I got a call. Shellye. Hi, Roland. Shellye. You put my name down to be your mentor. Yeah, Roland, I thought you liked me. And he said, Shellye, you got me. Go get somebody else. And I was like, what? Roland was my mentor? So it taught me a couple things. One, this mentor-mentee relationship, it doesn't have to be formal. Two, I have mentors that I don't even know about. And three, I can have as many as I want because he told me to go get another one. So honestly, I took all that, and that became my entire approach throughout the rest of my career. I just adopted mentors all over the place, and it worked, and it worked well. I learned a lot, and I tell people, I spent a bunch of time in the book talking about how to actually adopt a mentor and all of that, because honestly, why learn everything from scratch when you can learn from others? People think that mentors are the people that help you figure out what your next job is. And yeah, mentors can help you absolutely with thinking about your career path and the whole bit. But the other place to use mentors is to help you do the job you already have. Because until you master that, you probably aren't going to get opportunities to do the next thing. So mentors can also be people who've just done the job that you got. Why? That way you spend time with them, you learn what they know, and you start your job on, first base instead of home plate. So mentors are huge. And don't worry about it being formal. People tell me all the time, I don't know where to find mentors. Mentors are everywhere. They're absolutely everywhere. It's anybody that you can learn from.
That's interesting. One of my finest mentors was a fellow by the name of Martin. And he said to me, Adam, the reason I love being your mentor is you are so highly coachable. And I was wondering, it's incumbent upon the mentee to make it good for the mentor and gratifying in some way. And I would think that one of those variables has to be the willingness to be vulnerable, the openness to being coached, having that learner's mindset. What do you think a good mentee should do in order to keep the mentor engaged so that it is a truly reciprocal relationship?
Yeah, it's a great question, because I'll be candid with you, Adam. I think most people are lousy mentees. And most people are actually lousy mentors too. Because the only thing that makes a mentor-mentee is if I ask you a question and you give me a perspective or an answer, boom, you're my mentor. Nothing about being a mentor. I know nothing about being a mentee, but we just bounce along together. So I'm glad you asked the question. So what makes a good mentee is realizing that you own the relationship. A mentee owns the mentee-mentor relationship. And therefore, you need to set an agenda, know what you're going to talk about, and know what information you're looking for before you go in. Ideally, you share it with the mentor before you get there, so you have a chance to think about it. You need to make sure you're developing a relationship and you're not just taking. So you can't show up every time and say, here's my problem, here's my issue, get some perspective and say, thank you very much. And then come back 2 months later and say, here's my problem, here's my issue, thank you very much. Come back. What is the mentor getting out of that? Nothing. Okay, nothing. And if I don't get anything out of it, it's not a relationship. So both sides have to benefit. So what can you do for a mentor? You can thank them. You can show gratitude. You can actually help them see that what they're doing, the time spent, is actually resulting in new behavior or new results or something positive. All of those things can be value, but the mentor has to know that in order for them to actually get the value. So it's really important to close the loop. The mentee is the one who actually owns the relationship, not the mentor.
That is such an important distinction. And the piece about gratitude is so massive. What are some great ways a mentee can actually demonstrate gratitude from where you sit?
Oh, gosh. The best forms of gratitude are when I get a note or a message that says, hey, Shellye, after our last conversation, I did X, Y, Z, and this happened. You had impact. We had impact. Or you see someone actually excel. You're working on trying to get a promotion, trying to get this, and then it happens. Yes.
Totally.
And you find out when it happens, not like 5 months later when they come in and say, oh, yeah, by the way, I got promoted 5 months ago. Hey, I wanted to share in that joy. So all of those things are wonderful for a mentor.
Shellye, I want to convey to you my deepest gratitude. And I've been looking so forward to speaking with you, and you delivered just as I had hoped. You've laid it out for my listeners, actionable ideas, wisdom, and I really hope that people will pick up your book. Unapologetically Ambitious is one of my favorite reads in recent memory, and I just can't thank you enough for being with me.
Thank you very much for having me on your show. And if you liked what you heard, feel free to connect with me on social media. I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, what have you. But thanks so much.
Oh, right back at you. This is Dr. Adam Dorsey thanking you for listening to Super Psyched. If you know anyone who might like it or who might benefit from listening, share it. And if you like the episode, please hit subscribe.